Let's take a look at the best sounds from a Nikon professional line of film cameras. There are so many cool and iconic sounds from these cameras, and it's more than just the shutter sounds. It's not about being loud or quiet, it's really about the quality of the sounds. Sometimes the quiet buttons are great, and sometimes I love the clicks and noises of the switches and buttons. It's totally possible that my cameras make somewhat different sounds than your cameras. Maybe it's the age of the cameras or how much they've been used, but I wanted to share some of the great sounds that these cameras make. When it comes to sounds, what's best for me might be different than what's best for you. So let's listen. Let's start with the shutter sounds. That's what we often associate with a camera. I'm going to play them one after another so you can compare. All the sounds were recorded with film in the cameras, and the cameras were set to 1/250th of a second. So the F had a ping sound, almost a ring to it. The F2 and the F3 had similar clicking sounds with a little bit of a ring. Now the F4 had a very different sound. It almost like it had two parts to it, like it has to work hard to advance the film. It was the first F model that had a built-in motor drive. The F5 and the F6 actually had very similar sounds, just slightly different. Now for me, I like the sound of the F5. It just sounds efficient and fast. Let's listen to the sound of these cameras with the motor drive. Unfortunately, I don't own a motor drive for the Nikon F. You can't just add it yourself. It has to be added by Nikon and calibrated by Nikon, and I don't own one. But if I do get one, then I'll update my video. So let's listen to these other cameras with the motor drive. The F2 is unapologetically loud. Now you can get a faster frame rate if you lock the mirror up. It's around 5 frames a second with the mirror up versus 3.5 to 4 with it down. And you don't get that mirror slap, so it's a slightly different sound. Now the F3 is such an iconic sound. You can also use it with the mirror up, but you only get a slightly faster frame rate. The F4 is quite a labored sound. It's almost that two-part sound. It reminds me a lot of the cameras from the 1980s and 1990s. The F5 is like a machine gun. I don't know if you've seen the Camera Store's video Battle at F-Stop Ridge. It's a few years old now, but it is fantastic. I'll put a link in the description below. And the F6 is similar to the F5, just a slightly different sound, a little bit quieter. And my favorites are probably the F5 and the F3. They just have those iconic sounds. Now, when it comes to sounds, there's also sounds of the different dials of these cameras, especially the dials that we use to change the shutter speed of the cameras. Now, the F to F4 have these larger dials, and the F5 and the F6 use command dials. So they're going to be slightly different. But let's take a listen to those sounds. When it comes to the F3 and the F4, I can almost feel the sounds from these dials and buttons. It's actually interesting that the sounds got louder as the cameras got newer. The F3 and the F4 sounds were noisier than the F and the F2. Now the command dials on the F5 and F6 are quieter. I actually prefer these. Maybe that's just what I'm used to, but I also can really appreciate the old school sounds of these dials and buttons. Now let's listen to rewinding film sounds. Now to start, I'm going to use the manual rewind function of each of the cameras and listen to those. And I use the same film in every camera for consistency. And again, these sounds may be different than your camera. So let's listen. The F was virtually silent. It was incredible. While the F2, my F2 had a clicking sound, the F3 reminded me of like a wind blowing. The F4 was very quiet, while my F5 had an audible clicking sound, and the F6 had a sound that reminded me of that wind like the F3. Remember, they all had the same film in them, and I appreciate the silent F, but these are all cameras that just have their own sounds. Now let's take a look at the sounds of the motor drive when we're winding film. Now a reminder that I don't have the motor drive for the F, but it actually doesn't rewind film anyway, so I couldn't do that test. So let's have a listen. So the F2 and the F3 are super loud, as you can hear. Not for a quiet place. You can actually hear when the film ends. You have to stop the F2 and the F3 from rewinding. The F4 is almost a whining sound, while the F5 is super fast and efficient, and it's actually quieter than the F4. The F6 is quieter than the F5, not as fast as rewinding. Personally, I like that quiet rewind, but I appreciate that fast rewind of the F5 and those noisy, loud, unapologetic F2 and F3 sounds. Let's take a look at the autofocus sounds. Now I'm only testing the F4, the F5, and the F6. I use the same D lens for consistency. I kind of wanted a noisier lens, and I focus from infinity to close and back. So let's have a listen. Sounds like the F5 was just trying to rip through that motor to focus that lens, but it's actually still quieter than the F4. The F4 sounded a bit labored. Now the F6 was quieter than the F4 as well, but it sounds like that the F5 was probably the fastest at focusing in this example. Let's have a listen to some of the other sounds that these cameras make. And some of these cameras, like the F4, have a ton of things that make sound. Look at all these dials. So let's listen to some of the self-timers, the film doors. I just want to share some of the other sounds that these cameras make. So let's rank these cameras from 6th to 1st. In 6th place, we have the Nikon F. It has a bit of a pingy shutter sound. Even the sound of putting the film door onto the camera is a bit tinny. Now it's got very quiet dials and rewind. There's nothing wrong with the sounds, they're just not my favorite. In 5th place, we have the Nikon F2. Now the shutter has a slight ringing noise and it has very mechanical sounds. It's a non-apologetic, loud machine. With that motor drive attached, wow, it is a great loud beast. It has a loud self-timer. Again, there's nothing wrong with the sounds, they're just not my favorite. In 4th place, we have the Nikon F6. Now it's similar to the F5 in a number of ways, and I think they just work to make everything quieter. But quieter doesn't equate to the best sounds. So I don't hate the sounds, just maybe not as iconic as some of the other cameras that we have here. In 3rd place, we have the Nikon F4. It is a noisy beast. It embraces the sounds in whatever it does. The dials, the autofocus, the shutter, the rewind. It is the ASMR camera of this group. There are so many things that I love about the sounds of this camera. Overall, I would say that the shutter sound lets it down a bit. Otherwise, it might be at the top of the list. In 2nd place, we have the Nikon F3. When I take a picture, the shutter has a bit of a ring to it, and it's different when I attach the MD4. With the MD4 on, whether I'm taking one picture or a series of pictures, it is iconic. That's an amazing sound. It has an insanely loud film rewind, almost obnoxious, and the shutter speed dial makes some great sounds. If we were only looking at the shutter, then maybe this would have the top spot. And in first place, we have the Nikon F5. At 8 frames a second, it's an iconic, incredible sound. It's like a machine gun. The rewind is fast and efficient. All the sounds point towards this being an efficient camera. Fast focus, fast rewind, but still quieter than the F3 and the F4. I really love the sounds of the command dial, so overall, altogether, that's why the F5 has the top spot. What about you? What sounds do you like? I would love to hear what you think, because what I like may be different than what you like. Do you have any questions? Do you have any features or comparisons that you would like to see with these incredible cameras? If you like the content I'm creating, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.